All right, Zig coming in on top. Today on the show, we have Tara Giancaspro, also known as Sweaty Lamarr, a singer-songwriter out of Hoboken, New Jersey, and Philadelphia, PA. Spends her time going between the two. Her musical journey was a bit backwards. She spent her time, at least at the beginning, as kind of a supporting role, and spent her time doing internships in agencies and press agents and talent booking and venues, and learned all the inside stuff first. And usually it's the opposite way. You're like, how do I make these sounds? And then when it gets to anything near that, you're like, I don't want to send emails. So Tara's a pro. And this was a really, really fun conversation. I learned a lot, and I think we became fast friends. This was great. She has a new single out called Mysteries under the name Sweaty Lamarr. We're going to check that song out. Mysteries by Sweaty Lamarr, out now on all stream platforms. In April, there's going to be more. There's an EP called A Little Bit of Cuntry, a little bit of rock and roll, and it's a mix of those two genres. And we get into the stories and songs that are going to be on that in the interview, and it's really well thought out. She's got a lot of cool narratives in it, and you guys will just hear that when we get to it. But yeah, this was talking with Tara was really cool because it was a different insight, and what's amazing is what you just heard. She's only been doing music for 2 years, right? But before we get to that conversation, if you can rate, review, subscribe to one of the podcast platforms to support the podcast, that helps me keep talking to cool guests and sharing their insights with you. All right, now we're going to get into it. Here's me and Tara.
I had listened to, I think, Glenn Morrow's episode.
Oh, okay. Nice.
I've known Glenn for 1.5 million years, so.
Nice.
And then I think you just had Avery Mandeville on, if I'm not mistaken.
I did. I've done 2 with her.
Yeah, I love Avery. So
she's so cool.
Avery fucking rules. Yeah.
Awesome. So you just known Glenn forever?
Yes, I was Glenn's intern in 2009.
At
so
Bar
that's
None?
how long ago. Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. I can't all right. We're rolling with it now. By the way.
Yeah.
I've been trying to dive into where to start with you because you do so many things.
Yeah, I'm a busy little bee.
Which is awesome. But
Thanks.
I know music's fairly new, but what so you're interning with Glenn? Is that to learn how that was that for school? How'd that come about?
Sure. When I was in high school, I had realized that I wanted to go into music management or the music business in some way. I used to run shows at the Maywood Senior Center, putting on some shows. Probably the only band that came out of that you might know is Prawn.
Okay.
If not, check out Prawn. They're my buds and they're wonderful. So I was really involved in that. I think I had wanted to be an artist manager. And so our high school had majors, and then we had to do an internship on Wednesdays. So I wound up coordinating that. I was a law and justice major of all things. And I was like, okay, but I know I'm going to go into music. So I called Bar None. I probably spoke to Glenn and said, hey, do you need an intern? I'll come demo CDs for you. I'll do whatever you need. And he was like, yeah, sure. Come on Wednesdays. So once a week, every Wednesday, I would drive into Hoboken and I would go work at Bar None. And I had a great, great experience. And I'm still friends with Glenn and Mark to this day.
Very cool. So wait, you had a major in high school?
Yeah, my high school. I went to Bergen Tech in Teterboro.
Okay.
They do require majors for their students, but I think it's wonderful. I think every high school should have a vocational program so you don't spend a ton of money at college and then hate your major and then change your major 5 times. I was a law and justice major. My high school offered, culinary, automotive, your things that feel like us blue collar, and then also white collar, like IT, business. Our sister school has a pre-med major. I know that for sure. They also have a theater major for some reason. But yeah, my high school offered major, still does to this day. And yeah, it was a great experience. I went through 3 or 4 careers by the time I turned 18 and graduated. So I wasted no time going through college.
That's beautiful. Yeah,
It was great.
Yeah, that's super badass. At my school, they had a vocational school, but it wasn't like that. You signed up for one, and you kind of got that was it. And like,
Sure.
wow, that's super cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Especially, it seems like you seem like a go-getter. Like, you seem to like be into like a million things and trying things out. So like, to have that like kind of like to be in that headset at that age, and like the mindset, to be in that mindset and have the access to it at that age, that's awesome.
It was great. And my high school like made me who I am. I was this depressed little like cutter kid in high school, but I will say high school, looking back, was the best decision I could have ever made for myself. We were very musical as a high school. I always call it rock and roll high school. We had a lot of young teachers who were in bands, and we would come into class and they would be playing They Might Be Giants or Doves. Like, I was exposed to so much music. It's basically Dead Poets Society every day,
That's awesome.
We watched Pulp Fiction in my intro to film class. That was the first time I saw Pulp Fiction, like sitting in a room in my high school. And we had a lot of concerts. So we would do these sort of coffee shop style concerts in our commons after school hours. You'd have your parents like drop you off back at school, and we would do themes. So sometimes it was all like dead artists and wanting to uphold their legacy. Sometimes it was a little open mic situation. We did Sounds for Hope, which were these benefit concerts. Every year we would pick a charity and raise money through the concert to donate. The one year I remember was we had watched Sicko, the Michael Moore documentary, in my film class. And then we ran into my teacher, Geb Zerberg, like the king, ran into one of the guys who was interviewed in the documentary at a pizza shop in Jersey.
What?
And was like, hey, we just watched your documentary. Would you be open to coming in and talking to my kids about your experiences? So we had one of the guys from Sicko, like one of the guys who went to Cuba where they couldn't film. And he came in and talked to us about his experience and, like, shared what he could. And then we chose a 9/11 first responder charity as our Sounds for Hope beneficiary and handed him a big old check. So yeah, I remember that one very well. But yeah, my high school was totally rock and roll high school. I got into so many bands that I still love to this day through my teachers and through my other students. And
like local bands or like bands?
Some big, some bands I was like. I got into Bad Brains because of high school,
Nice.
And
yeah.
Bad Brains, like problematic faves, but I was like blaring "Don't Bother Me" while I'm driving through the parking lot of Bergen Tech trying to get out of there, and like Elliott Smith and all that. But we had a lot of local bands in my high school. So I started as not the musician, but the musician supporter. So we had all these bands. We had Lost Blue and we had Prawn and we had Hands on the Stereo, which were all made up of, boys from my high school. And I was always like mommy. I was the one photographing the shows and like making snacks and like slipping them like $20 when they were going off on tour. And that's how I kind of started my music experience. And then, of course, eventually putting on shows myself in Bergen County.
Mm. Well, I mean, you are in that situation that the scene comes from the one friend or the handful of friends that are like, you got this, that's badass, keep doing what you're doing, and like you make it possible. Like I think there's such an not enough respect given to the person that supports everyone. Like without that, there's nothing. You know what I mean? Like without that, it doesn't exist.
I just talked about this with my friend Lawrence, who also has a podcast. And I was talking about how now I'm in the position where Lawrence is the musical supporter. And he dabbles with music as well. But I spent most of the podcast telling him, hey, you're doing the important stuff because I could be releasing my music into a vacuum. But people like you are amplifying, our art. Right. So I think it's an incredibly important role. And as someone who did it, I was a music manager in college. I managed an artist. And again, I was photographing. I was doing a lot of the kind of band mommy business. Now I'm in the position where I'm the musician. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm glad I was there for them.
Like, so that skills, let's kind of step back. So as you're
Sure.
supporting and you're being with, like, you're kind of sidelining and like just seeing how it all works and working on like almost the business end of everything. Are you like playing guitar? Like, do you like, when are you
No,
dabbling musically? Are you singing or like
not
not
at
at all?
all. Yeah,
Huh.
that's everybody's kind of surprised. Like my old friends are kind of surprised that I ever picked it up. But they're like, we always wanted you to be in front of the camera. You were always the one behind the camera, but we always didn't get why you weren't in front of the camera, and now you are. It only took you until 30, you old fuck. But you know, yeah, no, I had not owned a guitar.
Huh.
I wrote a couple little songs, like just lyrics, and I don't even think I've ever admitted that to anyone. Like, there's probably still a Word doc in my external hard drive from 2009, and they're probably terrible lyrics. But it had been a soft dream. It wasn't really a goal I had for myself. I think just everyone's wanted to be a rock star at some point.
Well, for
So
sure, right? Like
yeah,
that seems like, well, astronaut or rock star, rock star,
yeah.
whatever one's gonna pan out, like
And then the egomaniacs are like,
right.
I want to be the president. So you have those three jobs. Yeah, so I was not the one who was doing that. I was the groupie and the musician supporter, and I'd let them kind of do it. And I don't think it was anything that they were doing where they were gatekeeping. I think it was just a lot of misogyny around the area where girls were not encouraged to pick up the guitar in my area. And looking back, all of the bands that I would go see locally at every VFW show, all men, every single one. There was not a girl bassist. There were not girl singers. In my area, it just wasn't happening. And I loved music, but no one told me, hey, Tara, you can get an $80 guitar and watch a couple of YouTube videos and learn how to write a song.
Right. Well,
So I didn't.
yeah, so I did. Well, I mean, so we're about the same age. I'm 31, and like,
I'm 30.
yeah, I don't know. I feel like we kind of hit that like age group where it's like you didn't just internet everything at first. You know what I mean? Like, so like to think like, oh, all I have to do is like look up YouTube how to play is like a later thought, And for so many
Yeah, I
kids,
mean,
that's like the thing. Just if you want to play, fucking Google how to do it, and now you can do it. Like, what and when I was younger, I'm like, oh, I gotta take lessons. I gotta meet a guy.
you got to go to School of Rock. Yeah, you got to go to School of
Right.
Rock and
Is that
do
there?
that.
Do you have those?
We had a School of Rock
Yeah.
in South Hackensack, and I saw like trophy scars there in 2010. So yeah, I've been there. Yeah, that's another thing. Like, my little brother, who is not musical in any way, was offered guitar lessons as a kid,
Yeah.
but I wasn't.
Mm.
So,
Huh.
it's interesting.
Yeah.
I think it's just a weirdly gendered thing in my area. Probably not anymore. You probably have a lot of girls and non-binary kids who
Right.
are totally like, okay, yes, because I can teach myself if I wanted to. I'm going to pick up the guitar or the piano or whatever instrument
Right.
that strikes their interest. But it wasn't something that was presented to me at that age. The artistic kind of expressions for young women, I think, and now high school was like 2005 to 2009 for me, was your more artistic visual endeavors.
Okay.
Painting, photography, which I
Yeah.
did, cooking and baking, crafts, like, now those are still things that people really love. But yeah, I just wasn't encouraged. I was kind of encouraged to be the musical supporter, and I was very maternal, and these guys were reaping the rewards of the efforts I was undertaking. So, of course, they didn't even think to be like, hey, Tara, come join us. They're like, oh, great. We love getting brownies after the show.
Right. Well, but was it like almost, I don't know, it wasn't like to a point where it was kind of like taken advantage of, right?
No,
Okay,
God, no,
okay.
no. My boys, like, I had wonderful, wonderful bands around me, people I'm still good friends with. And, if I still run into anyone I ran a show with, they're like, oh my God, you were the best at this. You were so good at it. And they're very happy that I'm doing it now, because a lot of them in turn have given it up. Bands the band is broken up already because they went through 10 years together, or they moved, or they're married and have kids. So now I'm the one who's doing it. They're like, dude, we're proud of you. And I'm like, thanks. I'm proud of me too.
That's awesome. Okay. So were you, I mean, I guess, you see like even like, it's like, okay, is it piano? You see like, I don't know. It seems like there is like a kind of gendered, like, oh, guys on guitar, girls on piano, or not too often is it the girl behind the drum kit. But that is one thing I'm glad is like switching, because they're all instruments, you know what I mean? They're all our hands are built the same, arguably. But were you writing throughout all this?
A little bit. Like I said, there are a couple. I wrote maybe 3 songs.
Not music,
in
just writing in general.
Like creative writing.
Right.
No, again, I started my artistic endeavors very late. I can tell you when I decided I was going to be a writer, and then I can tell you when I actually started writing. So when I was in college, I had this very long-term, mostly off but on-off thing with a much older musician in Philly. And I remember I was interning at another company because I interned at probably 13 different music-oriented businesses while I was in college.
Wow.
Ton, like every type of talent booking and artist publicity, like working at a venue, every single thing. And I was running errands for Fame House, which is a great little firm in Philly. I think they've been acquired now, though. And I'm standing in the post office in Old City, and I get this text from this guy that I had been involved with, and he was like, "You are so funny. I don't understand why you're not up doing stand-up comedy or writing. I think what you say has meaning and resonates, and you're so mature," which, yes, is exactly what every 31-year-old man dating a 19-year-old has to tell them. They're always like, "You're so mature." And it's like, "You're not," which is why you're dating me. But I didn't know that. I don't know that yet. So I remember him telling me this, though, and I was like standing there, and I can picture myself, the woman who was going to take my package had all of these Prince pictures all over her desk. Like she had like the purple desk. And I kind of looked at this message, and I wish I still had it because I would have it framed on my wall. And I was like, yeah, I should do something creative. So keep in mind, I was 19 when this happened, and I did not start writing until I was maybe 23. So it still took that long, where I was looking at the blank white page, and it was, and you're my age, so you'll get this, the SpongeBob SquarePants, like what I learned in boating school is, or trying to write the big the. Big calligraphy the. Like I was SpongeBob for years. And then when I was
good reference. That was on the team. That was very good.
Thank you, darling. I'm always available for a SpongeBob reference. Eventually I started writing these micro reviews for films and TV that I had seen, called What I Watched Wednesday. And I posted them just on my Instagram for my friends. And I actually developed quite a little following from people who were very curious to learn what I had watched during the week. Because it wasn't just, you go in the AV club and there's all the stuff that's on now. I might have watched a movie from 1972. I might have gone to see a new movie or a TV show that got canceled in 2003. So I guess, which is always weird to say because I'm never the one to toot my own horn, but I guess they were interested in my personality, and that applied to what I was watching. And I would very much infuse my own opinion into these short, like 800 or fewer word reviews. I would use my kind of personal slang, and I was not formatting it like a typical review. And I would be very open in saying, I thought this thing sucked, or I loved this and you should all watch it and thank me later. See, that was my first writing effort, was just sort of blabbing about things I love, which I do to this day. Now I just save it for my Instagram stories.
Got it. Well, okay, that seems like, because like it's hard to like generate material, and like when I was trying to figure out like where you were coming from, like I saw some bits of you doing stand up on your Instagram, and like, so like when you're kind of diving into that like form of writing, that seems like such like there's plenty of material. You get to work like jokes that are relevant to what you've just seen in a way. And even though this was like a blog, right? So that seems like a really good exercise to kind of like start conveying yourself, like, and like honing in a personality like on paper, like.
Yeah, I love doing those. I miss it. I still consider every now and again, if I've seen something that I love, I'm like, damn it, I should bring back another What I Watched Wednesday just for this. But music takes up so much of my life that if I'm writing now, it's pretty much lyrics.
Yeah, that's a whole nother form of like of writing. What's going on with the novel?
Oh God! Please take your shoe off my neck. So I started writing a novel in 2018.
Okay.
And again, for a long time, that novel was me staring at a blank white page. What I learned from my several years of being an executive assistant is blank, because the book is, as I call it, a Me Too romantic comedy from hell. It is about an office place romance, an assistant and their boss. And it goes not just off the rails, it's a mess. It's a nightmare. It's a horror story, really, at the end of the day. It starts off sweet, and then all of a sudden, Act 2 is like, oh, the guy was a monster, and now she's got to run for her life. So yeah, I started writing that in 2018. I eventually got the courage, and then the words just flew out of me. I had a little bit of trouble working on it during the pandemic.
Yeah.
I wound music just grabbed me by the throat and like did not let go. And that's still largely the case. But I crashed at my parents' shore house for a couple of months last summer because I was working from home, very luckily. And I wrote so much. I wrote like 60 pages in a month. And then I have not touched my novel since, but I need to maybe just get back down the shore.
Well, I mean, like to write music it's just like throwing away a bunch of mini novels. You get when you're writing lyrics or writing, you're everything's like, it could be it could up, but the next day that can be like nothing to it. At least a novel kind of compounds and you have a spot. Like with I feel like with lyrics, they're like lettuce in a way. They go bad right quick, or you need a whole new bowl. You know what I mean? Like this is a Joe Strummer bit, but like, and I agree with it, because when you're writing that stuff, like, do you have when you're 19 and you get this like encouragement just to formulate the thought while doing all these internships and understanding like the music business, and that didn't like did you jump into stand up right away, or were you acting? Because I saw you just posted like today that you're reading for something. So like
today I am not acting in that. I was reading because this is what I do. I'm
just reading. Oh,
I was literally reading the script for the Mike Myers Dieter movie, like the Dieter character from SNL.
Shit. Okay.
Yeah, I was on Twitter and people were talking about white whale projects, like movies that they had heard about or were supposed to get made and never did, and things that they would want to see. And someone posted the Dieter script, and I am like the Mike Myers stan. If I met him, and I've met presidents, I have met famous actors, I have met all of these people, I have made out with too many drummers. If I met Mike Myers, I would burst into tears and fall to my knees. Like that's just one of my guys, to quote Mark Maron.
That's like, who are you guys?
Who are you guys? My guy is like Mike Myers. John Travolta is my fake father. Like I always joke that Fran Drescher is my mother and John Travolta is my father. So I would probably have an emotional response meeting the one and only Danny Zuko. And yeah, like, men, and my cat Lugosi. And that's like the end of the list of my guys.
That's awesome. Okay, I totally read that wrong. Like I thought you were reading for her. I'm like, and you're so all over. I'm like, I don't doubt it anymore. She does everything. So
I always get told I should act, and I'm like, babies, I am so dramatic enough in my life. Do I need to welcome more drama? But that probably means I'd be good at it. Yeah, and I also get told like that I look like a lot of actors. I never get told that I look like a musician. They're always just like, "Oh my God, you look like Kat Dennings," and I'm like, "Thank you. That doesn't mean I'm going to show you my rack, but okay, thanks, guys." Yeah. So no, I have not acted. I did stand up one time, which I think you saw. Your listeners can go on my Instagram and watch me do stand up. I actually think I did pretty well, so I do like to brag about that. The Alamo Drafthouse in Brooklyn, which is one of my favorite places. It's wonderful. They do rowdy screenings where you can go, you can cheer, very Rocky Horror Picture Show energy for whatever movie they're showing. And it was Cats, like the awful Cats.
The new one.
That I wound up seeing 6 times because people were asking me to come over to their house and like host it. And I saw it in Philly. I saw it in New York. I hate this movie. I will never see it again. I can't. But Alamo asked me to host. So I showed up dressed as a slutty Skimble Shanks, really Skimble Skanks. And I did like a tight 3 on what you could expect from this god awful movie. I had so much fun doing stand-up. I don't know if I will ever do it again because I like had to run through that script like 15 times at home to make sure I had it memorized.
Right.
And it went well. Like my first and only stand-up set was a 150-person sold-out attendance list. And so I'm like, do I need to do it again? I kind of got everything I need from that.
Kind of killed it. Like
I kind of did. And it was all pop cultural, which was very easy for me. Like, I don't know if I could do a type 5 about my own life. You know, what's the deal with all of these men I've dated? Like, I don't know if I could do that. But if you give me a pop culture theme, I could probably write a couple of puns about like Grease 2 or whatever you would ask me for.
My bass player loves Grease too.
It's an iconic movie. Super Yaki, which is an amazing clothing line, all dedicated to different movies and performers, just released a Grease 2 merchandise collection that was designed by my very close friend Courtney Lasore. So you should send that to your bandmate.
Plugged.
I'm big on plugging because I was that musician supporter. So I'm very like, let me shout this out to you and let me do it in a subtle way.
Well, you know, when you get used to thinking like that, and not even marketing wise, when you just like are impressed with your friends and you hang out with friends that do cool things, it's just like, it's not even plugging. It's just, I just got off the phone with my friend and they're doing this. Isn't that cool? You know, like, I think that's such a healthy mindset in a way, is like, oh, all my friends are doing cool things like that. What am I doing? I'm doing something cool, hopefully, you know? But like kind of, so getting through all of that, like that seems like either that would be, it seems like as soon as like the musician that's kind of like played the house shows and has road dogged it forever for 10 years, right? And like to get anywhere near like where you've like kind of grew up in musically in the business end of things, they'd be like, that's the most soul sucking thing. Like, was it in a way? It seemed like if you're diving into this now, clearly there's an inspiration that is not lost from being within the business end of everything for so long.
I had pretty good experiences and even if I hated them at the time, I don't really hate them now. Like I worked at the North Star Bar in Philly with Andrew Miller, who was their talent booker. So I got to kind of see how these talent deals got made for a small venue. And, you know, I was working and I wasn't getting paid. I think I got a college credit, but I did get to meet Max Bemis.
That's pretty
cool. That I would have paid for that. That's Max. Okay, Max is one of my guys. Max
There's
is
more
one of
guys.
my Mark Maron.
There's more guys.
Yeah. Probably my most prominent lyrical influence is Max Bemis. So, you know, I got to meet him. I have a picture with him. It was freezing out and he was very gracious about it. But yeah, like I got to see some of my favorite bands for free because I was interning there. So, you know, it was a wonderful experience for me. You know, and it really, I'm the networker. I'm that connector person. So I made contacts at these places that I could still call today and probably ask for a favor if I needed advice on getting getting booked to play somewhere, or, insight into how this song might do, if I'm pitching it to a record label. So for me, I wound up lucky because I came into making music knowing how to establish and maintain these relationships that are really what drives your success.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm like, I've my whole journey was the opposite to some degree, but I've always like found a weird way into different things, and like I'm like, damn, I wish I had that knowledge. Like I just signed up for a media course recently to like learn how to properly use internet media stuff, because like that's such a far mind when you're so focused on writing and trying to do that part right, and then playing, you're like, crap, I gotta hit that note every time.
Sure.
I gotta make that phrase fit. And coming from a songwriting standpoint, you get what that means, but like, it's such like, so to have that kind of like, that's prereqs to the fun part now. You know what I mean? Like, I'm very envious of that. That's very cool. Like
it's almost the fun part for me. Like I have to say, and I will fully admit this, I have many, many friends who are musicians, who are in popular bands. I am far and away the least talented of them all. And I am not fishing for compliments here. It's just the truth. I've been doing it for less time, but the one thing I have over them is that I'm very good at doing all of the networking. Right. So it really just kind of counteracted my lack of experience and talent. And I'm better at that than I am at singing, because I've only been singing for not even 2 years at this point. And yeah. And I work with more talented producers and guitar players. Like if I was playing the guitar on all my stuff, oh no, it would be a nightmare. It would be a caricature of the 1990s, riot girl picking up a guitar and like she cannot hold that A7 to save her life, let alone do a baby bar. I can do a baby bar.
Brag.
I will say I can do it. Yeah.
Yo, what up, B minor?
I can bar. I just have very small fingers. So barring is not the easiest thing for me in my tiny baby hands. But the networking is what I'm good at. And people are like, oh my God, I can't believe that your song is taking off so well. It's like, yeah, I know how to write a good artist bio and a pitch email. That's how I got on that radio station in the UK, guys. Like that's all it is for me.
Well, that's, It sounds, it's easier said than done when you're like so far removed from that. And like to be singing for 2 years is really impressive. I've been singing for a long time and got to halfway to being okay. And like, so that don't put yourself down there, because that's bad. That's badass. But like, it's such a different headspace to be in. And like, it's not no one wants to do the homework, And like, I think that's really cool, that because once you know how to do it, like it's adapting to the medium, right? Well, okay, this medium allows 30-second videos. How do I make this work? And it's trial and error, or whatever it may be. Like, but like, I don't know. So that like, everyone in just the skill set to be like, I don't have to do everything. I have a friend that can play banjo. It's been a skill that I've been learning recently, because I'm like, I have to learn all this shit. If I want a banjo track, I can call my banjo friend, but I doubt they'll show up. And like, chances are,
trust me. I know what that's like. I've worked with a couple of producers and arrangers who have flaked the fuck out. So yeah, that's difficult for me. That's the most difficult part, is actually getting the music made. The lyrics, right. No. Singing it, no. Actually getting the music made and mixed and engineered is the hardest thing for me. And the easiest part is selling it. So I'm completely ass backwards.
That's bad.
And I know it.
That's awesome though. Like, I don't know, like I think I'm in the mindset now of trying to understand it, like taking this course and just like the last few years, like grasping how things work, like I feel like so many bands are like, we're just going to do it and people are going to pick up on what we do. And like, you got to do a little homework too. You know what I mean? Like, not everyone's a Paul McCartney or a Beatles situation where you're just discovered, like it doesn't.
And they had to play in Hamburg and like,
right. They hustled a lot.
Yeah, they did. And they're icons for a reason. They did that without the internet. I got one easy break. I will tell you about my one easy break.
Easy break number one.
The first day that I put out my first single, which was the end of last October, someone found it on Bandcamp who was a New Jersey-based DJ, and they played it on their radio station. That is the one easy break I had. They did not know who I was through Instagram. I didn't send them a pitch email. They literally were just looking for new New Jersey releases on Bandcamp and found it and played it on their radio station. And now that person is a contact of mine, and I have a phone interview with them in a couple of weeks. But that was the one easy break I got. Everything else is required, strategic online marketing and searching and reaching out to people and developing these relationships and seeing how I can be useful to them and vice versa.
Right.
Yeah.
And as far as a talent, getting just that, I guess the pick for advice as a talent, what typically do you say, because that exchange is extremely important. You know what I mean? If not, the venue's got a bunch of bands that want to play here anyway. Or, there's key things you got to, show that you can give back, right? But when you're reaching out to someone like a playlist or a radio station like DJ,
sure.
What do you, with you in particular, you have other connections from interning at all these places. So I'd imagine that kind of falls into your return pitch, or how do you return the favor in that situation?
Sure.
You know what I mean?
So, yeah, I've luckily cultivated a pretty strong social media following. Instagram is primarily where all of my kind of leads come from, if you will. DJs, it's pretty much all come from Instagram. So I have a pretty strong following on there, and I guess people see that and go, oh, okay, so if she boosts our podcast to her however many thousand followers, they'll listen to it. And sometimes it is that much of a lizard brain situation,
right.
But also because I'm a creative person, I have a lot of creative friends. And when I meet people who are also creative, we just understand each other. There's that same wavelength. And then we're just excited to boost what the other is doing. I'm excited to share your podcast because you're dedicated to uplifting musicians. And you were excited enough to have me on because I'm a musician and you like to talk to musicians about what they're doing and how they do it. So
I appreciate the kind words.
That's
And
real.
I was just excited. You reached out to me. I was like, someone cares about my thing. That's awesome.
I did it. Yeah. And the way that I reach out to people is if I see that it's a podcast I'd like to be on or a radio station I'd like to be featured on, I just send hey, thank you so much for the follow, or thank you for liking my post. I'd love to send you my new song. And that's it. And I don't make it too thirsty. I'm just I would like to share this with you, because the worst they can say is no, which really most people don't say no. They're like, absolutely not. I don't want to hear your goddamn song. So, they're like, yeah, okay. Yeah. And then if they like it, which luckily a lot of people have, I've been very lucky about that at this point. Then they say, yeah, you know what? I would love to play your song. And then, for example, for the radio stations, they're like, could you record a bumper for us? Which is when I do, in my very professional telemarketer voice. Hi, this is Sweaty Lamarr, and you're listening to blah, 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 blah. Awesome. And they get a little something from me. It adds a little prestige to what they're doing because they're working with the artists. I found that a lot of DJs at this point really want those cultivated artist relationships because the thing they can use to bring in listenership is the ability to premiere a track.
Yeah. That's one thing I've been I don't know. So I'm not new, but new at the same time. You know what I mean? And it's interesting. It's the same with a film at a film fest in a weird way. The DJ or the playlist or whatever wants to premiere that. That's interesting. I don't know. That really kind of I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense because then it's unique to this source.
Yeah, it does. I mean, radio in general, people are not listening to as much because they're using Spotify or whatever the hell Deezer is. I still have no idea what Deezer is. I see it all the time. I don't know her.
She's at the party.
Deezer,
but only
Deezer, I hardly know her,
Only an Instagram post, you're like, oh shit, Deezer was there? I could have met Deezer. I could have met the Deezer.
Yeah. So whatever Deezer, they're using all these services. So radio is just not getting listened to as much. But like, I think college radio is an amazing thing. It's a really amazing way for people to get involved in the music business at a young age, and to, keep kids excited and going out to shows, and, and keeping their music interests alive and building them. So I'm always very passionate about reaching out to those people in particular, and something they get excited about when they talk to me and say, oh, we're going to add this to our airplay for sure is, have you premiered it to anyone else yet? Can we do an exclusive? Can we do an exclusive in our country if it's not something in the US? And I'm like, yes, please. That's amazing. And they get excited about that, because then it brings, if I post on Instagram, oh, hey, listeners in Spain, you should pop onto this radio station and check out the premiere of my song. The radio station gets a few more listeners and hopefully keeps them.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah.
It's that simple.
Yeah. It's like, it's just such a different way of like kind of approaching, just knowing that it's possible, knowing that exchange, right? Because I've been doing a lot of just reaching out to people to interview, right? And just in my own mind, like trying to pick for insight, and like that exchange, with certain people that pays off of like, why would I do this? What, So like, I'm always interested in like, just as an artist, how you do that. Like, how do you return that favor? Because it makes sense. If you can return a favor, yeah, a Snoop Dogg can be on this track because you are going to, fill in the blank. I don't know. Like, but that makes a lot of sense. That's really cool. Sorry.
What were you going to say? Sorry.
I was going to say, I appreciate the insight. But,
God, yeah, of course. For you, it should be as easy as, hey, I have a new song coming out, DJ on this radio station. You should play it. And in turn, I'll have you on my podcast, because I think people really love to be asked to be on podcasts. Like, I'm always excited when I get a podcast request. I was just telling a friend of mine, like, I'm tired of telling the same story about who I wrote my first single about. And he was like, get used to it, because you're going to have to tell it 300 times. But I do get excited every time someone asks me to be on one. So yeah, like, that's an easy exchange for you. Hey, you college radio DJ, do you want to come on a podcast and talk about how you find this music and what you're listening to? Easy exchange.
Boom. Yeah. That's really, yeah. I'm all jacked up now. That's awesome. Yeah. Inspiration. But yeah, like, the kind of like, so I appreciate that. Thank you. The kind of like dive into your music, because we haven't gotten there
please.
Yet. Like,
go for it. Dive.
So like the pandemic happens, and like, when does writing music actually happen? Like, are you singing, playing, working on, like, on a side note, bar chords are a hard stop for most people, and anyone that gets close or passes bar chords should be proud of themselves for being in the like the top few like percentiles. Wow. Because
thank you.
As a person who teaches bar chords a lot, like, I've seen a lot of people not pull through on them. So yeah, everyone who does is a survivor and a champ in their own right.
I can do a G minor.
Oh snap! There you go. You're good. If you can do a G minor, you're set, because that's the hardest one. That's a big. Maybe an F minor is a little harder because 2 frets down, but that's it.
Yes.
But so, when everything's shut down, you're writing like in this novel, and you're writing all like trying stand-up bits and stuff, but like I guess for that one focus thing. But like, when do you start writing?
Yes.
Are you writing lyrics, or are you messing around with like melodies?
Sure. So here's what happened. I feel like I'm like going through like Monk at the end, where he's like, here's what happened. Here's how they killed his wife or whatever. I was writing my novel. I was writing a lot before the pandemic started. And then I literally woke up at 3 a.m. one morning. It might have been like March 15th, like right when the pandemic started. And I woke up and I had these lyrics in my head, and I grabbed my cell phone and I sent an email to myself. And I thought, I don't know what I'd be doing with lyrics. Maybe I will write a short story about musicians. And I had this whole idea in my head about 2 musicians, like a guy and a girl, who dated and then would break up because of band power dynamics, but they would keep writing these songs about each other and weave back in and out of each other's lives. And I was very seriously considering doing this until I opened my mouth, my big mouth, and sung the song out loud. And immediately I was cursed, and I've been cursed ever since, because I said, oh, fuck, I guess I have to make this song. And now, again, this is me who didn't even own a guitar, who had not sung outside of doing Billy Joel's You May Be Right at karaoke a bunch of times, had no musical performance experience of my own. I did a play in the 8th grade. I did my school musical in the 8th grade. That's literally it for performing music in front of people outside of karaoke. And luckily with karaoke, everyone is drunk except me. So, you know, they're drunk. They don't remember if it sounded good or bad. They probably think it sounded great. But yeah, so I immediately messaged a good friend of mine and I said, how the hell do I make this song? How the hell do I learn how to sing? And he put me in touch with the great Chelsea Friedlander, who has been my voice teacher this whole time. She's an opera singer. She's our age. She's wonderful. And I started working with her from home once a week. We actually did not meet in person until like last Christmas, where I went and surprised her at a performance she was giving of Handel's Messiah. And she like saw me in the audience and like screamed. It was very cute. Yeah, so I started working with her right away. I bought an $89 blue guitar, like an acoustic, right, and just started watching a bunch of YouTube videos. The first song I learned was the Buffalo Springfield, Was It For What It's Worth? You know, okay. Stop, listen, what's that? Yeah, that one, because it's A and E.
Yeah.
Yes.
Got that. Done. Next one.
So I started doing a bunch of those little songs. I mean, if you have the 2 quarters, like 3 is a magic number from Schoolhouse Rock. And I learned a couple of those songs. And taught myself guitar for the first like 6 months I was playing. Taught myself Silver Lining by Rilo Kiley, which is one of my favorite songs of all time. And I did cry when I played it through for the first time. I was like, oh my God, I'm making music. And then I just started writing. I could not stop writing. I'd be up at 3 a.m. every morning after working 13, 14-hour days from home. I would stay up so I would have that like alone time to just write. Right. And I probably the first year of the pandemic wrote 40 songs.
Wow. That's
lyrically though.
Yeah.
I was not arranging. I could tell you what they sounded like. I could do the vocal melody. And I had the lyrics, but because my guitar, I was spending more time on my voice because that's the one thing I knew I'd have to do myself.
Right.
Guitar, someone else could play guitar or piano or drums, but I was the only one who could sing for myself because I'm not J-Lo hiring Ashanti to do it and pretending it's me. So, although by all means, if I could hire someone to sing for me, I would at this point. Yeah. I would do it, or I would just give my songs to people and be a songwriter, and I would probably be just as happy as I am now, because that's my favorite part, is writing those lyrics and constructing those vocal melodies. But yeah, I wrote an album. It was going to be a concept album about my time that I spent in Philadelphia, because I went there for college. I lived there for 4 years, and I had kind of painted Philly in the album as a boyfriend or a romantic partner. And the narrative that I always gave was, you know, I love Philly, but Philly hasn't always loved me back because I've had a lot of traumatic experiences there while I lived there. And I had to take my space from it. And I kind of had to forgive the city for what I experienced there. And that was my first album. And I was working on that until last summer when I pretty much scrapped it and started anew. Yeah.
And that's just writing it, right? Nothing was like recorded for this first album, or were there demos?
It was a producer situation. I'd started working with one producer who then moved out of state, which did not make it easy during a pandemic, or ever. And then I started working with another producer. And it just, the album took a really, really long time because I had a full-time job. The producer had a full-time job. The musicians I wanted to work with had full-time jobs, and it just wasn't getting done. And last year was the worst year of my life anyway. And so in the summer, I just had this moment where I was like, nope, we are throwing out this album. The album is taking long because the person who inspired it is dysfunctional. So the album is dysfunctional. And I had this whole like histrionic thing where I didn't throw out the album, but there is stuff that's recorded that might not see the light of day to this day. I really do hope, though, that I'm able to go back and revisit some of those songs. Some of them I'm glad I did not put out because I just don't think they're as good as they could be. But there's some that I still think are really, really special. And to this day, I find myself singing along to in the car.
To kind of touch upon like just being in the mindset when you said I would be happy just to be like a songwriter and have someone else do it, I think that's such a mature, like such a like you have to go through an emotion, like a certain emotional like workout to be strong enough to let something like that happen and be fully supportive of it as if it was someone else in the scene that you were backing. Like that's such a strong mindset and strong emotional like security you have within yourself to let that happen like that. That's cool as fuck. Like that's a skill set to definitely be proud of because like that's not something that's easily achieved. A lot of people like and maybe I'm talking about me, but like that's such that's a feat within itself just to be in that mindset of it. So now fuck Philly. No, but when you're to kind of dive into it, when you're writing, when you're spending all night writing these melodies, do you start with like a scenario? Like, what's kind of the process for you? Are you like kind of just like vomiting up things about a topic and like picking what becomes musical and then making a melody and writing that out? Or is it like melody in the head that evolves into like a narrative?
No, it's definitely the lyrics come first, and then I kind of have to work on a melody that makes sense. Sometimes it happens right away, obviously, as a lot of music does. Sometimes it somehow comes together like magic. But for me, so many of my songs are inspired by conversations I have with people where, I have a conversation with an ex-boyfriend, or I have a conversation with a friend of mine, or I'm watching a movie, and all of a sudden I just hear a phrase jumps out, something jumps out. And I think, that's an interesting concept to dive into. And usually I will immediately email myself the line that comes to me. And at this point, I have a bank of probably 1,000 lines that didn't make it into songs that I can, pull up in a Google Doc and say, oh, you know what? That was a really clever little turn of phrase. I can drop that into this song that I've built out more. Sometimes it's a conversation. I always say that every relationship I've had, because I write a lot about love and romance, every partner I've had is basically a sheet of glass. And I drop that sheet of glass to the floor, and sometimes it just cracks in half, and I have 2 songs, 2 concepts to explore within that relationship. And then other times it shatters into 65 pieces. And from one relationship, and it could be somebody I was involved with for 3 days in 2012. But if they said 65 clever things, I can turn those little thoughts into songs. There was a guy I was seeing, I'll give you one example. And he had said to me, your mind moves in wild ways. He was like, following your conversations is always this exciting challenge because you're not afraid to drop a reference to, a movie you saw that was filmed in 1962. And I do not diminish my pop culture prowess when I'm talking to people. And he said, your mind moves in wild ways. And immediately I was like, I'm going to be putting this into a song. And eventually it became this song about how I personally worked myself down to down to nubs, being clever and enticing and charming and emotionally available for men, or at least, did in the past, for it to then just burn out. And then I'm kind of left alone with these inside jokes that, we created. And that song is like one of my favorites. I'm working on getting it made now, but it's called The Dancer. So it's about how I'm spinning myself to keep charming and keep interesting and keep their attention. And it eventually, these people don't work out. one of the lyrics is, I make myself wonderful for all of these bright nothings. And making myself wonderful is something I ripped from Carrie Fisher's biography. That little phrase, or no, it's one of her other books, but it was, I made myself wonderful for him. And I've always thought about that line, and it found its way into a song.
That's such an elegant way to kind of put that. That's cool. That's really cool. And it's interesting. I was just talking with this band, Charming Disaster. Are you familiar with them?
Great name. I don't know them. Okay. Classic, 2003 name, which is great.
You would think Screamo, but they're like this kind of goth duo, and they do this folk music, and it's really, really neat. And they do this thing called the Bushwick Book Club, where it's in New York, and they read a book and then they write a song about it, and they get together and they perform it. And
I love that.
Right? Isn't that really cool?
That's great. I gotta do that.
What you gotta do is let me tell you what you gotta do. No, you gotta do one with your films, because that would be. I feel like that's right up your alley. That can bring back what you watched on Wednesday.
You have no idea. I wrote a song about. I watched. Have you ever seen Joe versus the Volcano?
I have not, but that sounds like an amazing film.
Okay. It is a Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan movie. It is one of my favorite movies of all time. I watched it by myself on my 30th birthday. I was down the shore and I had a John Patrick Shanley, a Moonstruck and Joe versus the Volcano. And then inexplicably, The Beautician and the Beast, the Fran Drescher, Timothy Dalton rom-com.
Yeah.
But I watched Joe versus the Volcano and I completely fell in love with it. And I wound up writing a whole song from Meg Ryan's character's perspective.
That's awesome.
So I've done this before. Yeah, that's how much I love that movie. You can never go wrong casting Dan Hedaya in anything. But see, again, not afraid to whip out the references. But yeah, I would love to do that. I had a lot of ideas for writing songs about different movies or different kind of phenomena that has nothing to do with me and my own personal story, because I'm kind of tired of having to conceal who I'm writing these songs about, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well,
very tired.
Yeah, well, because I feel like in that way it's a little more freeing in a way to really kind of freshly engage in this perspective. The bit I was going to bring with that Bushwick Club thing, the nugget from our conversation was you want to try to find the shiny thing. You want to be like the crow and try to pick the shiny thing out of whatever it is. And if it's in a conversation where someone says you think in wild ways, or if it's in my mind, it's kind of like the Dewey Cox moment. Have you ever seen that film?
Oh God, yes, of course I have.
Walk hard. You know what I mean? Dewey, you better not be writing a song right now.
I constantly say, and it's the weirdest thing to pull from this, but I constantly say the wrong son died. It weirdly comes up in so many scenarios. If I'm seeing a movie, I'm just the wrong son died. I've done that probably 5 times this month, to be honest with you.
I do refer, wrong kid died.
Yes.
I say that a lot too. It's fucked up. It's not an okay the thing unless you get the reference. Wait, what? Or I've been halved is another one I enjoy.
Oh God, yeah. Wait, okay. So tell me, where are we learning from Dewey Cox besides a bunch of one-liners?
It's besides a bunch of that's what matters is the one-liner. The one-liner is the song seed that eventually plants the tree of, or that everyone can learn without a sense of smell. There's you've been smell blind. I don't know what we're learning from Dewey Cox, but I think that moment that the spoken, when you're talking with someone and the thing that someone just says that you're really engaged in within a conversation can be a profound, thought-provoking moment. I think maybe that's the grander lesson from this, right? During a conversation with someone at a gas station, they say this weird turn of phrase, which is how you, for here on out, think about, I don't know, pigeons, whatever it may be.
Sure.
But, I think if anything, I think it's to be ready to kind of capture those fireflies of
yes,
nuggets.
100%.
Right? So I think that's the grander lesson. But it's also super funny.
Yeah, that happened to me. That just happened to me. I just went to a play. I had no idea what the play was going to entail. I went with a friend of mine. And at the beginning, there were two people standing in the middle of the black box, and they were singing things that people had handed in on note cards. I think the first question was, describe the last time you had been touched, which I said, disappointed. And the second was, what was a question that you would want to answer? And so these people, and these two had beautiful voices, and they were singing. And one of, I guess, the questions that someone wanted answered was, do we still get to love each other when we're dead?
Damn.
Which bowled me over. And I immediately, I turned, because I like to turn off my phone when I'm in a theater to be respectful, but I immediately turned back my phone and I sent myself an email like, Tara, make this into something, which I probably will. I'm working on, and it's been very hard to even get to the point of, but I want to write eventually a concept album about my grandmother who passed last year. And I think that lyric is perfect for that story. So I immediately was like, oh my God, I have to steal this. I'm so sorry to whoever's idea this was, but it's mine now. You will not find me and sue me. Sorry.
That's the mystery that gets solved in mysteries. Like that's the tie-in to what you just put out now.
Hey, yes. Yeah. That song is very much inspired by my gram. And I was shocked that it came that easily. Other stuff I want to write about her and her life has not come easily. I can't touch it yet. I might not ever be able to touch it because that was my favorite person in the world. But I'm hoping someday I get to touch it because I would love to tell her story. It deserves to be told. So
that's, I think, and like it's I don't know, like because I've been around a lot of loss lately, and like I don't know how lately that is for you, but I'm sorry for that. That there's no like.
Thank you.
There's no, and there's I don't know. There's no even right way to even say I'm sorry, but the condolence thing is such a weird place to be in. But like,
sure.
And I've had these kind of concept, like I'll get a melody, a ghost melody in my head, a ghost progression, and like a lyrical concept. That's when I'm trying to like, it has to hit all three checks so I can keep going vaguely, and like that with some of these songs, like trying to tell someone's story in a way, like I've been kind of stuck there too. So, and like, I don't know, it's a tricky thing to be in because like when you're telling someone else's story, it's a little, I try to write every other day and I don't care if it's anything. I just want to write.
That's great.
And I put an hour in and I have no expectations. That's been my like routine for a while. That's
fantastic.
And like, sorry.
Can I ask you, I want to ask you a question. Sure. What is your split between writing abstract and conceptually about, okay, I want to talk about this concept of breakups or this concept of getting too drunk one night or whatever it is. And then what in balance do you use, like personal stories and personal narratives and personal specifics in your own songwriting?
I'd more recently been trying, but it depends on the kind of like what I'll do is I'll sit with like either a song seed, right? Like a Dewey Cox moment, like the shiny thing. I'll focus on that and try to make that into a narrative, but only based on like a chord progression I come up with in a melody. So I'll really harp in and like hyper focus on a verse and a chorus. And like sometimes I'll just like I'll kind of riff things. I'll riff a melody and then try to make that fit that song scene narrative. So like if it's like
interesting.
So that way I have like a form. I have my canvas, and now I'll try to make the words build into the bit where it's trying to go. Even if it's the chorus line or if it's like an end tail lyric. Because I'm much more of I started on guitar. That's my comfort.
Sure.
Like I don't need to worry if I'm hitting a G. I know I'm playing a G here. And learning to sing was like the like emotional lesson, like where you just get pounded into dirt. And you're like, you accept what you hear and you try to better yourself. You know what I mean? It's such a kind of a hard like skill set to learn. But eventually I think I'm okay. And like, I will always be trying to better myself in lots of ways vocally and
great.
Just, trying to keep that mindset going. But I feel passable now. I feel like, fuck, I wish I was able to do what I can do now. Like 10 years ago. That would have been great for some of those gig opportunities. But so I'll write like the melody and try to lyrically lead it in. And so when abstractness comes in is like if I kind of like babble a lyric that sounds musically really satisfying and is vague enough to fit the narrative from A to B. You know what I mean? Like if this line is like a very vague, like kind of description of a thing, or definitely takes a twist from the A line, you know, in between like the A and B, like if it's that type of rhyming scheme, sometimes that's where I'll keep more abstract things. Or if I just riff something and don't have any song seed, I'm like, I really like what I put together here, and I don't want to get rid of that yet. So that's kind of where, as far as like, right? Or maybe like in a more emotional context where you're like, I don't want to describe this character in a way that sounds too rhyme dictionary-y. You know, I don't want to be like, they had a bad day, so that and they all went away. Like then maybe like a more abstract. So that's, I guess, in those type of contexts is like if musically I found that it really fit, and I want to keep it there with the narrative, or when like you need some type of thing to split that rhyme dictionary feel, or just to attempt to like better enhance a metaphor before or after. I guess those would be my three scenarios for more abstract, like, I don't know, Pete Francis-y like lyrics, or you know what I mean? I don't know. I'm trying to find a good.
No, that makes perfect sense. I'm the exact opposite. Like my music has to bend to fit my lyrics, and I'm the one person I know who writes lyrics first and then has to arrange the music to fit. So I get the opportunity of writing whatever story I want to tell. There's actually one line on Mysteries that I hate. And every time I hear it, I'm like, oh, I wish I could fast forward, which is I didn't know a lot of things he did. And it had to rhyme. And I was like so mad. I was like, why does this have to rhyme? I was so angry. And I still, every time I hear it, no one else would notice it. I bug the hell out.
Yeah, no, I did not notice that.
Yeah,
but now I will.
Nobody would. Thanks so much. Nobody will. I hate it because it's not true to the story.
Right.
It doesn't feel true to the story for me, and it doesn't add anything. And that's where, as an aspiring novelist, and yes, I'm making like the jerk off hand motion as I say that, the most important thing to me is writing the truth. So even the sound of the song comes second to writing the truth of what I'm trying to explore, or the truth of what actually happened in my life that inspired that, or the truth of the movie or other song I've heard that inspired it. Like I wrote a response to Def Cab's Calf, which is one of, in my opinion, the greatest songs ever made. And I wrote a response to Calf, like as the woman who's getting married, and it's like, I think you should come object. I've been trying to tell you that you should come object to this wedding because I don't want to get married. And even if I do, I could get divorced like right away because it's just a divorce. Just please come save me. I love you. And I didn't want to write anything in that song that didn't feel true to what had been described by the great Ben Gibbard, one of my heroes. So the truth is more important. Yeah, one of my guys. Yeah, I would say honestly, if we're looking at my guys, it's like Conor Oberst for sure, because I won't fucking shut up in a song, and every chorus I write is different. Like I don't repeat choruses ever, to my detriment. Elliott Smith, one of my kings. Ben Gibbard, Max Bemis. Those were my high school dudes. Like if I would get their names tattooed on my arm, and probably would still to this day.
But they also kind of dedicate to the truth in a way to kind of continue off what you were about to land on. So for you, that's that. Well, and I feel like that's so hard to do when you kind of confound it to the music, you know, in a way. Like I think it's really cool to have like, and like, right. I just finished this book called Toonsmith by Jimmy Webb. Have you read it?
I have not.
It's a big book and a lot of pretentious talk in between. There's a big middle section, which is just music theory. And like, as a music teacher, that's cool. I get that for the most part.
Of course.
But like for any, like as far as like a songwriting technique, it could have been like 300 pages, 400 pages slimmer. But like, it's cool that it's here. Like, it's a really good book, and I don't I recommend reading it. I don't not recommend reading it.
Yeah, thank you. I will definitely check that out.
But like, and this guy's approach is very similar to your approach in a way of writing the narrative first and then getting the music and adjusting it too. And like, yeah, which is mind-boggling to me because everyone I've talked to has been like, yeah, I wrote the music first, and, and like, I try not to even ask that question because usually it's like, oh, what do you do? Lyrics or music? What am I on? What kind of podcast is this? You know what I mean? Like, who are you guys?
Yeah.
Is that what you're going to ask next?
Yeah.
And so I but with certain people like who have like a substantial lyric basis, like I have to imagine they do lyrics first in some way. So, and like even the people I thought don't do that. So like you're the first person I've talked to that has done that. So I find it really, and I've been reading this book about how to do that. So it's really intriguing.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm a weirdo who worked backwards. Like in every regard for my music experience, I am the weirdo who worked backwards. That should be the title of one of my albums. But yeah, I write lyrics. I write too personally. I'm trying to work on being less personal and exploring those abstract concepts, like the song I mentioned about like the dancer and spitting yourself out. Yeah. It's personal, but I don't have any specifics of, and then this guy called me and said these words. Right. Meanwhile, one of the songs on my upcoming EP is literally a phone conversation I had with an ex. So like the specific quotations of this phone call have worked themselves into the song. So that, I'm trying to do that less. It just makes my life a lot easier, as you can imagine. Less explaining to people and our mutual friends and to the person if they hear it.
Yeah. And like, I like they say, write what you know, and they tell you the exact opposite. They tell you be specific because more people relate to it. And I agree. But there's like when you said abstract, I thought you meant more like lines that are really like oddly like weird, like the vague. I didn't know like you meant like
I am the walrus.
Right. Yeah. Like I'm like that's why I thought maybe like
that I can't do.
Right.
Can you do that? Can you do that?
No,
I can't do that.
I can't do that. I mean,
I like.
That would be kind of cool.
Do you listen to Murder by Death? Do you know Murder by Death?
I know Murder by Death.
Okay, because they're always writing these like Western epics, and I'm like, where did you come from that you can just write this song about a cowboy? Because like, I don't know her. That's not my experience. I can't just write a song about like a young mom trying to escape like the ghettos of Poland. Like I can't. Right. I can't do it. Maybe someday I can. But for now, I'm like, no, I gotta write about what like this douchebag I hooked up with 6 years ago had to say about, while we were driving and I didn't realize he was stoned, and then I found out he was stoned, and I was like, please pull over the car, we're going home.
Yeah,
that's all I really write about at this point.
Well, those are like narratives. Like I feel that's important too. Like I feel like that's the Little Hag. That's like the
I love Little Hag.
Right. Like those are like the things that are so hard hitting that are from real things, and those you can't make up either. Like I don't know. Like I look at this Coheed and Cambria, like in their epic tales that they write. Yes. You know what I mean? Like how do you? And I think I don't know, but I think like it's finding the personal thing within it. And telling that story about the dude who's too stoned and should not be driving, and putting it in a Western like pull over this here wagon because that horse is about to caboot both of us off. Like,
yeah, because I guess Claudio is telling some story of whether it's love or redemption or a battle. That's what all sci-fi is. It's sci-fi and fantasy. It's just taking our real moral codes and spinning them out into a world with dragons and like wolves who have breasts or whatever the hell George R. R. Martin is writing about.
Twilight zoning it.
Yeah. First of all, big shout out to our friend Avery and Little Hag. I took a pregnancy test from blood.
Yeah.
Like one of my favorite starting lyrics to a song of all time. I literally sing that lyric to myself all the time, even though I'm not pregnant. I'm not put a pregnancy test in forever, but like that's the perfect to me opening line. It's like, okay, first of all, people have been through that experience. Second of all, it's really unexpected. And it's something that could have been used as a reveal later in a song.
Right. But that's where you
And that's what I love.
Right. It's such a punk rock
Jeff Tweedy.
Yeah.
Did you read Jeff Tweedy's book?
I did.
Songwriting book?
Yes.
Okay.
That's a goodie.
He says that. I think about that every single time I write a song. He said, if you think you have an amazing line that you're expecting to be some kind of climactic pull, try to make it the first line of the song and see what erupts from it. Because if it was such a good idea, it should spawn other ideas. And I think about that advice with every single song I've ever written since the day I finished that book.
That's it. Yeah. Is that what
I do that
like,
all the time?
So when you started, did you shift gears from this novel and like when you started to write songs, is that like one of the first ones you went into?
In terms of the book?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the only like how to make a song book that I've really read. And I took that and ran with it.
So
absolutely
good.
Ran with
good.
it. Like I have a song on my EP coming out called Both Feet. And the first lyric is something that I thought I would someday put in a bridge somewhere, which is, I went ape shit last night. That's the lyric. And I said, you know what? I'm going to start that as the beginning of the song. And it eventually came to, I went ape shit last night, but we both know I'm right, which first of all rhymed perfectly, sounded great in the construct of the song. And then I figured out from there, the next lyric is both feet in your mouth this time. Like I put my foot in my mouth.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
That song erupted in like 5 minutes. It truly, that song start to finish maybe took me 5 minutes to get the lyrics out and a full chorus, verse, bridge, everything. Just from that one thing that I thought would eventually be like me doing a Little Hag style song where it's just like, and this made me go ape shit. I just took it and started off the whole thing. And now it's going to be on my EP. That's
bad. That is very Little Hag. And that's badass. That's so cool. That's like, I don't know. That's like, she's so like punk rock in a way without being punk rock, like sounding, you know what I mean? Like Avery's very much punk rock, but like,
I mean, love that this is the Avery Standeville podcast.
Yeah. let's well, I mean, because as a songwriter, what's interesting is like if we take the same kind of concept, like the EP song she has, that it's called Come. Have you heard that one?
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course I have. I loved it.
Right. So like the payoff to that like is so cool. Like it becomes this dope anthem. You're like, yeah, fuck that guy. Like,
yes,
coming to punch him in the mouth. Yeah. Spoiler if you haven't heard that song. But like,
can you spoil a song?
I think we just did.
Yeah, I guess so.
The Stairway to Heaven doesn't go anywhere. The Doors song, The End ends. I can't think of it. The Hotel California.
The submarine is yellow. I'm sorry to tell you.
They eventually stop holding hands. I can't think of like. There's got to be like there's story songs that are definitely spoiled. The boy named Sue meets his dad. Anyway,
shit.
But I mean that's really interesting because like as far as like songwriting books, there's not too many, like, and that Jeff Tweedy one is such a simple and like
it's so small. It's basically a tiny book. Yeah,
and it's so impactful. And like the Toonsmith is the complete opposite. It's a huge book, but I feel like if you read that one, you'd get nuggets out of this one. But at least out of that one. I don't know, because I read a lot of like how does poetry work, and like because I spent forever doing music, so for me I'm coming from the opposite scenario where you're coming from. But so okay, to kind of tie it into what you're doing, let's so you have this EP coming out, and it has nothing to do with Philly.
No, thank God.
It's like a country EP.
Yeah, so it's not country in that I grew up on Garth Brooks or anything of the sort.
You grew up on Chris Gaines.
Inside all of us, there are two wolves, and one is Chris Gaines. I grew up on the Beatles and the Backstreet Boys, the two genders, if you will. And and this EP came to me because I've written at this point every single genre. I have a Carly Rae Jepsen inspired pop song, which is one of my top 5 favorite songs I've ever written. I haven't made it yet, but it's in the works. I've written like Touche Amore, dark, like, was it post-punk songs? Like, I've written everything. And when I gave up my first album, the Philly album, I found a new producer, and he and I had a phone call, and I said, listen, I have 50 songs. And he said, great, but you need to pick one. If you're not making that album, you need to give me something to work with, and you need to sing it for me right now. And I was like, shit. And he was based in Nashville.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do the sequel I wrote to Jolene. And he was like, oh, that's interesting. And I sung for him, Abbey, I'm Sorry I Stole Your Man, which is the lead single off my EP. And it is it's hard to describe. It's like very American Horror Story Coven trailer music. That's the sound.
Okay.
Like a lot of boot stomps and physical chains. We actually brought chains into the recording studio. Because I was like, I don't know how to make these sounds in a computer, so I'm literally going to go to Home Depot and get some chains. And it's that, and it's from Jolene's perspective. And in that song, Jolene is like, oh, okay, so I stole him from you, Dolly Parton, hot, talented, sweet Dolly Parton. And I thought I was something special, and he was going to stick around for me. And like, I didn't realize that it doesn't matter how great I am or you are. The guy still hasn't changed, and he's stepping out. Here's a spoiler alert. The guy winds up cheating on Jolene with somebody else, as we could have all predicted. And that song was kind of my exploration of the internalized misogyny that happens when people have affairs and they're told to see these men as something to compete over.
Right.
And I gave that song to Van, who is one of my producers on this upcoming EP. And he was like, great, I love this. Got it back to me quickly. I fell in love with the demo we put together. And then I very luckily had like 5 other songs that had some kind of country feel. I had listened to Gaslighter, the Chicks album, a lot when it came out. And I think that sparked something. It's one of my favorite albums of all time, even though, again, I did not grow up with country, and I can't say I've ever been to a country concert. I saw Casey Musgraves open up for Harry Styles, but that's about it. But Gaslighter is amazing because Natalie Maines drags her ex-husband by the teeth and by the specifics. And that's not a euphemism for balls. Like she literally just says, I know exactly what you were doing on my boat. And you brought your mistress to my concert at the Hollywood Bowl. And she told me I'm a fan. And I said, it's great that you're a fan as long as you don't take my man. And we all laughed. But guess what? That's what happened. And she really goes into specifics. And that really liberated me to comment on my own specific stories. So I had these like 5 songs, and I said, okay, we can actually do an EP of this. I don't have to make it a mixed genre release, which I wouldn't mind doing. I really think genre needs to be abolished. Like we don't all have to just make stuff that sounds the same.
Right.
Mix it up a little bit, even on the same release. Like, okay, if you want to have one weird, Euro trash pop song on this like ceremony album, go for it. Why not? It's music. We can all enjoy it. Great. But yeah, so now we have this country inspired EP coming out. I have one song that has a mix of like Mexican, Spanish guitar and that kind of influence on country. But that song is also mixed with like if Radiohead got their hands on it.
Okay.
Which sounds weird. It's like
sounds
if you
dope.
took if you took House of Cards by Radiohead, which is one of my favorite songs of all time, and added some Spanish guitar to it, you have Both Feet, which I mentioned. You have Abbey, which is the lead single. I have a very traditional country ballad called Dorothy No More that's very like 2008 Taylor Swift. I have one that sounds like a little honky-tonk jam. And then we're thinking about adding a cover to it. And as a response to the Philly album, which was about, inspired by one of the darkest places I've ever entered mentally, living in Philly the first 4 years I was there, and, the different things I went through. This EP is just fun. So it's been nice to just have a little fun and get to sing about stuff that feels fun to me. It's not as inspired by my own life, some of these songs. Some of them are, moral quandaries I've seen.
Okay.
And I can comment on, but it's not the specifics of you called me at 3 a.m. or I went to this really fun party.
And, well, I mean, just like the idea, the concept of a response to Jolene, that's such a cool concept for a song. Because those,
Thank you.
That's really badass. And to be able to put your own relationships that you've been through within it and just own experiences within it. And it's, I don't know, with country music, there's that room for this story to be told. It's as far as songs that are written, I feel like traditional kind of country style songwriting is where, or traditional country style music is where story and narrative really, really can shine in a very the music's not important at that point. It's the story. And most people who justify country being their favorite jam, is I just love stories. And you're oh, okay, Luke Bryan's got you. That's right. All right. But I mean, different. But ideally, a lot of people are drawn to the narrative, and that music is kind of simpler to, and that's total. You're not even looking at the musician himself, because most of those guys shred. But okay, cat attack. Hold on one second. Let me move this mouse before the cat attack gets catastrophic. But you know what I mean?
Aww.
It's the narrative, the music itself allows that to be on top of it, and a lot of music does. But I think as far as coming out as a songwriter and that, no better way to do it, because you can really show the chops there. And the fact that it's not just straight, because with the two songs you have out now,
yes,
with I like how each one's accompanied with just that kind of acoustic version of it, because you can kind of see where it builds up, and when you say Radiohead-esque things added to this country jam or a country style Spanish guitar led thing, I can kind of hear that with what you've put out already. That makes sense. That doesn't sound as what?
Yeah, the Radiohead-ish song is the only one on this EP that I think feels sonically similar to the two songs I've released earlier.
Okay.
I think that
right.
Sorry. Ask away.
No, I was going to say, so this next batch of tunes is going to be a completely shift then. A completely different shift.
Yeah, pretty different, because again, I've written so many genres. I think that, let's say, if I keep releasing music and, 5 or 6 releases from now, you're going to find me in one of two paths primarily. Either the stuff I've released already, which is that sort of atmospheric, sad white girl anthems like Phoebe Bridgers vibes, to the point where literally the person who produced both of them is Lucy Dacus' guitarist. Or, shout out to Jacob. Or I'm going full Suzi Quatro, 70s glam rock feeling, kind of a garage feel, because I have a lot of those songs written that I'm building out. And that's aesthetically how I present myself. So that makes sense. Every time people look at me and then they hear my music, they're like, you have so many skull rings for someone who is writing these sad, atmospheric, dreamy songs. I'm like, yeah, I'm a little gutter rat at heart. I sit around and listen to Midwest emo and Danzig, and that's what I listen to at home. I'm not really listening to Julian Baker. No offense to Julian Baker. It's just not what comes up on shuffle half the time. So yeah, I'll be in one of those two pockets, but I like having some stuff that feels really different. The Dancer, which I told you about, is it's very much in that rock space. It's like an Against Me or Titus Andronicus song. And in my dreams, if I was performing for people, that's the music I'd be making, because that's fun to perform. It's fun to have a rock band as opposed to like sitting in a coffee shop and just doing the little acoustic noodling and like, oh, I got to adjust my capo. Okay. And like, that's the only movement you make during the set. No,
it's on the wrong one. Let me do it again. Sorry.
Yeah. Like I want to do the big rock stuff. You know,
I was going to say, do you have plans? Do you have any performance plans?
I need a band. I always say, or I've been saying, I got super, super, super into Danzig last year.
That's
like,
awesome.
Super.
You can't go wrong.
Yeah, it took me 30 years to get into Danzig, and then I did, and I was like, wait, this is a 5'3" Italian from Bergen County. We're the same person. Oh my God. And like, I think one of my ex-boyfriend's dentists was like Danzig's cousin. Like that's how entwined is. Well, yeah. Cause like I'm from Hasbrook Heights. Danzig's from Lodi. I drove past his house pretty recently because I was going somewhere and I was like, oh, like that's where Danzig grew up. I knew that because it's something you point out when you're driving around. Yeah. But yeah, sorry, I got completely wrapped up in Danzig. I always joke that it's going to be easier for me to start my Danzig cover band than it will be for me to find an actual band. And the cover band, of course, would be for no real reason at all other than just I'm a mess of genres and interests. It would be called Franzig, and I would be exclusively dressed up as Fran Drescher.
That's amazing.
That's the gimmick. It's Franzig. This is my dream. This has been my dream for a year now. It's going to happen. And it's going to happen a lot easier because I just go to like St. Vitus and pay like 5 50-year-old men and be like, hey, like, come here, like you get on the guitar, you get on the second guitar, you get on the drums, don't fall in love with me. Thank you. But yeah, like to make the sad, sappy stuff that I've made, I don't know where to find someone who's like, yeah, this is what I want to play. Because largely that music is enjoyed by 17-year-old girls in Iowa, per the messages I get on Instagram. And it's not easy to meet up with them. But I'm hoping when I unleash my kind of fun, rocky songs that I can find a band and go out. Because, yeah, I would love to perform.
That's awesome. When's this EP when are you gonna drop it? Is there gonna be a couple more singles or?
April, so the 2 songs that have been out are not on the EP. They're one-offs. The one in October was supposed to be on my first album, and I said I'm scrapping the album, but we recorded the song, so it's coming out. The second one was something I wanted to do to commemorate a year of my grandmother's passing. So I wrote it real quick in January, and I said, you know what? We're recording this, and literally within the week it was recorded. And then the EP, I'm hoping it'll come out in April. We're still working on it. There's still a couple things I have to do for it. And I'm getting sinus surgery this week. So hopefully I am not held up in recording my final vocals. Yeah, thank you.
Can I ask why? Do you want to go into that at all? Like
I guess it's not more personal than me talking about like who I wrote my songs about.
Okay, nice.
I apparently have some polyps because I live with 2 cats, and I'm slightly allergic to them, even though I refuse to stop kissing their tiny little heads.
I 100% support that, and
I have polyps. And I have like a weird secondary sinus wall. Basically, the only way I've been able to describe this to people, because I'm gross, and it's truly the only way I found. I basically have like a hymen in my sinus that should not be there.
Right.
Like there's like just an extra sinus wall that should not be there, and it's why I am a like perpetual mouth breather. So they have to dehymenize my sinuses.
Wow, that sounds intense. Well, I hope that goes well. And,
me too.
Like, I can't imagine. Like, I imagine a couple days will be like maybe sound sore throaty or like rough, but I can't imagine that's gonna be like detrimental. Like,
no, they said I should sound better.
Yeah,
because
it'd
there's
be clearer.
Literally going to be stuff taken out of my nose that shouldn't be there. So, yeah. Most artists are shoving cocaine up their nose. I'm shoving stuff out of my nose. So again,
getting all the old coke out.
Everything I do.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Tara, thank you so much for talking with me.
Oh, thank you.
This has been I've had a real fun time chatting with you.
Me too.